Hello and good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the virtual Women in Philanthropy event. My name's Becky Ruthenbeck. I am the Director of Gift Planning here at NDSU, and I am so happy all of you have been able to join us today. Today you're going to hear from a handful of people. There are two panelists who are current donors who are watching their philanthropy work right now in the lives of our students at NDSU. Our first panelist is Virginia Clark Johnson. She's a former dean of 22 years at the College of Human Sciences and Education. We're also going to hear from Brandy Niemeyer. She is a PhD graduate from the Human Development program at NDSU, where currently right now she teaches and is the department head at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. We're also going to hear from Stacy Ackerman. She's a local financial expert who is going to give us some great information on ways to really watch our philanthropy work, make sure we are optimizing it, and also she's going to give you some really great tips. So today I'd like to welcome Virginia Clark Johnson. Virginia has served as the Dean of the College of Human Sciences and Education at NDSU for 22 years. During that time, the school went from 0 doctoral programs in 2003 to 117 doctoral students in 6 programs in 2015. During that time period, she also greatly increased the research capacity size of the college. In 2020, she received the National Board of Human Sciences Lifetime Achievement Award. She also retired in 2015 and now serves as a current trustee for the NDSU Foundation. Thank you, Virginia. Welcome to the webinar. It's a pleasure to talk to you right now. Virginia, can you turn on your camera right now? And can you unmute yourself too? Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Zoom just went away for some reason for a minute. So sorry, technical difficulties, I guess.
That's okay. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So
Glad to be back.
I just gave a really brief introduction about your time as dean, how you really advanced the college during that time. I really wanted to dive into your giving. Can you tell me what inspired your first gift to NDSU?
Well, I had just come to NDSU, and I've always felt like you give back to things you believe in. And so looked around at what needs were, and I think we might have been in a capital campaign then, I don't remember. It's a long time ago. But we wanted to get all the faculty and staff in a spirit of giving, and we needed scholarships. So we established a scholarship for an undergraduate student that would kind of be the outstanding student. And we asked everybody to contribute, and I made the lead gift for that. So it was a pledge, and so that was the first gift.
Oh, that's amazing. Can you elaborate on why giving back to NDSU is so important to you?
Well, 22 years of my life and lots of opportunities there that really the college grew, the campus changed, and I saw needs that things we needed to do and we couldn't do without giving back. So, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. I know you'd previously mentioned how important NDSU was and how the alumni contribute so much to the community, things like that. You also talked really how they're integrated into the fabric of society when we've had previous conversations. So I'm so glad you're a strong supporter of NDSU. Can I, as a former dean and current trustee, why is philanthropy important to you, and how did you see it working when you were in the college itself?
Well, without philanthropy and donors, we couldn't have done a lot of the things we did. Um, Student scholarships are always important, and we added to those. And as we added programs, we needed scholarships for those programs. It was really fun. One of the fun things that we did was we tried to be sure our donors that were still living, and that was a lot of them, were and their families were able to either meet or see the people that received their scholarships. That was tremendously fun. Faculty and professional development, we couldn't have done all the things we did without some extra support. Awards, nobody gives you award money in your budget. Somebody has to provide the support for that. And so that was really critical. And then assistantships for graduate students. And Brandy was one of our grad students that'll be talking later. I know she got some scholarships and some help. The other thing that really made a huge difference and was really important to me was we really needed a food production lab. We had 2 programs that used that lab that were accredited. And in both cases, accreditation teams pretty much said what we had just was pretty awful. And so I kind of made that my mission to raise the money, work with the foundation and our alumni to raise the funding for that. I decided that was toward the end of my 22 years, and I decided I wasn't retiring till we got something different in that lab. And it was really exciting to see people step up. And I remember the first gift we got from one of our donors. She said, well, of course, I'm glad you gave me. I really, really am excited to be supporting that. So anyway, that was one of the things that we absolutely could not have done without donations.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your fundraising efforts for the food prep lab. It's a beautiful space. It's unbelievable. And it must really make a difference in the lives of our students right now with their educational experience on campus. So I want to just thank you again for everything you did for that. So I also wanted to dive into a little bit about the decision that you and your husband made to leave NDSU in your will. Can you tell me why that was important to you guys to do and why it was important now?
Well, we've talked about it, and when the legacy challenge was out there, one of the things we had wanted to do and had planned to do as far as giving last year, we really were not able to do. We wanted to start a trust, and the stocks we were going to use kind of hit bottom. And so we decided that this was a good chance. We talked with our development officer, Ty, and Curtis, and this was a good chance to do something in our will. The legacy challenge really was an incentive for us because it gave us some match that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Wow, the Legacy Challenge is such a powerful program right now. So I'm happy you guys were able to take advantage of it. Can you also tell me, as you think about your future investment in NDSU, what philanthropic goals do you guys have?
Well, I mentioned really quickly, we're in the process right now of setting up a charitable trust. So the stocks are on their way to NDSU, and we're really excited about that. And we will continue to give to our scholarship, take advantage of the North Dakota tax advantage. And then it just kind of depends on if there's a project that we're super interested in. We may decide to do some investment in that. We also contribute as members of Team Makers.
That's amazing. I know it's probably been a journey to get to where you're at right now. Can you tell me how long it took you and your husband to get to this point in your philanthropy?
Well, we started talking about it from the time we got married, but it was kind of talk for a while. Now it's very much a part of our financial plan. So, for an example, last week we had a meeting with our financial advisor. We talked about what we wanted to do as far as gifting this year. And so it's just out there in our goals.
Oh, I know that you have worked with you've had a development officer for a few years now. Can you tell me about how that relationship has worked and how it has evolved over the time?
Well, I knew Ty when he was a student. And he pretty much, when he was hired, he reached out and contacted us, and we've kept in touch periodically and talked about what we'd like to do. So I kind of say he's kind of like a sounding board, a resource. If I want to know who's the right person to talk to, or at the foundation, a lot of times I'll just say Ty, so I don't have to call a bunch of people. Who is it I need to get in touch with? So it's a great relationship. We really like working with him.
He's a great contact for you to have on campus. I want to thank you so much for sharing your philanthropic journey with us. I also want to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about your passion project, the Alba Bales House. So from 1923 to the early 1980s, more than 1,200 women practiced home management skills, including cooking, baking, sewing, cleaning, entertaining, and balancing a budget at the Alba Bales House. As society changed, so did the house and its inhabitants. Home economics transformed into more specialized fields such as food and nutrition, clothing and textiles, child development, and family relations. The women at NDSU sought out more diverse opportunities and also career opportunities. Virginia, I hear that you had a few friends that spent some time in that house.
I did. In fact, I was able to hear about the house from friends and alumni who were there in the 20s through the end of living in the house. The house, and I see you're looking at some plans from it. It had 4 bedrooms upstairs. At some of the years, 6 girls lived up there. 1 bathroom. If you can, thinking about that today, that's a lot. 6, 8 women. And then for many years, there was an apartment on the 3rd floor, and the instructor of the course lived in that apartment. So they never were out of the watchful eye until the late 60s of somebody who was grading them all the time. I'm told by one of our alums who lived in the house in the 20s that they were graded not only on could they manage the money they were given for food and food prep, but they were graded if they made too much food or not enough food. And so there was a story about running out of eggs, and somebody had to sneak to the grocery store to get a couple more eggs. There were rules in the 50s, like what angle and how far from the edge you put your brush and comb on the dresser, and how you arranged your shoes. And then in the 60s, when the instructor was no longer there, one of my very best friends said that they just loved throwing their laundry down the steps because they really didn't want to go down in that basement. Some people said it was haunted. And so instead of taking clothes down to the laundry, they just throw it down to the steps, and whoever had to go would pick it up. she also said that they would set out, most of them were seniors, and they'd set out at night when people they knew were going out for a date. And so when you came home from your date with your boyfriend or fiance, there was this whole crew of women sitting there waiting to greet you and welcome you back to the house. There were married women that lived there over some years. And if you were married and lived in the house, you only got a night or two to go home and be with your husband. So that's just a couple of stories and rules from the house.
Man, if those walls could talk, they'd have so many stories. I had no idea all of that existed in that house. Thanks for sharing. Can I ask you why the Elba Bales house was a passion project for you?
Well, tremendous history. It's, the campus, we were required when it was built, if you had a home economics program, you had to have a home management house. And so every state had one of these in some form or fashion. And just the history alone and the number of people who had stories, that was really important. It was kind of in a state of disrepair, and I didn't like that. I didn't want something that we were responsible for, and so we fixed it up the best we could and used it with our students, and so kind of tried to adapt to the times.
Virginia, before we say goodbye to you, what do you say to inspire others to invest in NDSU?
Well, being a former dean, I'd say if you ask any dean on campus, maybe any of the administrators, they'd have a list in their pocket or in their desk drawer that would be, these are the reasons you should give money to NDSU. These are the projects, maybe you can find something that's important to you. I will tell you, and I think most everybody who'd be on this presentation would know, but the funding that NDSU gets from the state, it's basic. So it's just enough to do the basics. And if you want to go beyond that, and NDSU does a great job of doing that, but you've got to have support from donations. You've got to have support from grants. And those donations are just really critical. So, and we've talked about a couple of examples, but so that's what I would say, that to do this special extras, find something you're passionate about that NDSU's doing and support it.
Virginia, I love those words that you left us with. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your philanthropic journey with us, telling us about your passion for NDSU and your time in the college, and also sharing the story of the Elba Bales house. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you, as a viewer, would like to learn more about the Elba Bales house, you can visit library.ndsu.edu. So our next panelist is Stacy Ackerman. Stacy is a current trustee member for the NDSU Foundation Board, and she's also the treasurer of the NDSU Foundation Governing Board. Currently, Stacy is the manager of Abbott Downing, a Wells Fargo business that provides services to clients of unique wealth. Thank you so much for joining us, Stacy. It's nice to see you again.
Hey, good to be here. And I'm so excited to see that these webinars are continuing. And I love hearing the stories and the history. That's certainly, being a student, those aren't the stories that you always hear.
Oh, I'm so happy you've been able to join us. I know you, in the past few years, have participated in Women in Philanthropy, and I'm glad that you're able to join us again for this event. I know there's a lot of different ways that NDSU supporters, alumni, donors can invest in NDSU, but can you walk us through the way donors can optimize their gifts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, we'll talk about how do you make your dollars stretch, but the really important thing is finding those passion projects, and what are those projects that make your heart sing? And as many of you probably know, the word philanthropy means love of humanity. And so I just want to thank everyone who's on the webinar today listening for what your contributions have been to university life. It is just absolutely imperative for our students, our faculty, and our state. So while we'll talk more about how to optimize your dollars and your giving, I don't want to lose sight of it really is about you and your passions and making a difference. In addition to that, some of the strategies that we'll talk about, I do recommend that you consult with your professional advisors. Each and every one of these strategies is not going to be appropriate for your situation. So I always encourage you to visit with your team of advisors because they'll know what are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish, what are your assets, and which of these strategies really make the most sense for you. So, being in financial services, you probably knew I had to have some type of disclaimer before we jumped in, and that would be part of it. So one of the things I was thinking about is how do you optimize your gifts? And I grew up in Jamestown, North Dakota, and it was a special occasion where my mom and I would go to breakfast at Hardee's. And, we didn't go out to eat or without a coupon. We didn't buy something at a store without it being on sale. And so as I think about philanthropy, I think about what are some of those strategies as well that help you stretch those dollars, which my mom and dad would be proud of. So I'll put them into three categories. How might you give now? How might you give later? And then what is a combination of those strategies? So first off, I'll talk about giving now. And, we all know that we're at a luncheon. It might be the, NDSU Foundation Giving Day. In February, it's coming up here in Fargo-Moorhead, we have Given Hearts Day. And so there are times where, it makes sense where we just use our credit card, we give some cash. But I want to be able to share some other ideas with you today to help you stretch those dollars. So again, thinking of my mom and I at Hardee's in the morning and using our coupon, right? So first strategy is appreciated assets. So you may have invested in stocks, bonds, farmland. There's lots of different asset classes, if you will. And when they go up in price, that's called appreciation. And when you go to sell that, there is something called a capital gains tax. It does depend on your tax bracket, but for upper income earners, that tax could be 20% of the appreciation plus something called a Medicare surcharge. So if you were to sell that asset, pay the tax on it, and then gift that to like an NDSU Foundation or another nonprofit, you're actually reducing your impact in what you can give versus if you give that appreciated asset, the foundation can sell that and they don't have to realize that capital gain. So definitely something to visit with your development officer about. Second strategy is what are called qualified charitable rollovers. So if you have a traditional IRA, so that means your money went in pre-tax. When that money comes out as part of a distribution, the IRS is waiting, hand out to tax that. So it's been great, right? It went in pre-tax, it's growing tax deferred, but now the IRS wants their share. So there is something called a qualified charitable rollover, and you do have to be 70 and a half. And rather than taking your required minimum distribution and paying tax on it, you could distribute or roll that over to a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 or like an NDSU Foundation. Now, it's going to be confusing here because two things. Last year, because of the coronavirus, we didn't have to take our required minimum distributions. In 2021, the required minimum distributions are back. However, that age has now gone up to 72. So you're not required to take that required minimum distribution out until age 72. However, the qualified charitable rollover is available to you if you're 70 and a half. So again, visit with your tax professional or your development officer on that. In addition, I'm going to call these the icing on the cake strategies within the Give Now. So Last year, there was a special provision that allowed individuals, if they did give cash of $300, to deduct that on their tax return. And it was just a special one-time provision, so you did not have to itemize your tax return or have itemized deductions on your tax return. So that's sunset, but in 2021, there is a provision for individuals. You can continue to deduct up to $300, married up to $600. And again, there's some specific criteria and rules you'll want to be aware of. So talk to your tax advisor or your development officer to see if that pertains to you. But I like to bring that up because not everyone itemizes their deductions anymore now that those exemptions have gone up. The other icing on the cake strategy that I'll share with you is that North Dakota tax credit, which Virginia brought up as part of her segment. And this is a special rule for North Dakota residents, but it is incredibly powerful. And what it states is if you're a North Dakota resident, if you give to a North Dakota endowment, a minimum of $5,000, up to $25,000 as an individual, up to $50,000 as a married couple, you get a tax credit. So not a deduction, but a credit, which means you get 40% off of what your income tax bill would be. So it's incredibly powerful. I encourage you again to talk to your advisors about that. And you may say, you know what, I don't make that large of a gift, but perhaps you want to bundle them, maybe 1, 2, or 3 years worth of gifts in 1 year to qualify for that tax credit. The other item I would mention with that is it does have to be endowed. So let's just say if it was $10,000 you gifted to the North Dakota NDSU Foundation, that principal will be there forever. It'll be the earnings on that will be able to be used for students, faculty, and potentially campus needs. But as we really think about future generations, what a powerful strategy both for you and successor generations when we're no longer here. So those are the give now strategies. Next, I'll talk about the give later strategies. And if we're all honest, we're all worried about, will I outlive my wealth? And we're constantly looking at increases in medical and health insurance costs, cost of living. It just continues to go up. So you may not at this point in time feel comfortable giving a larger gift. So what I'm going to bring to your attention is being able to use assets such as IRAs and life insurance. And each one of these, you can list a beneficiary. It doesn't, 100% have to go to a nonprofit or, an NDSU foundation. So you could have some family as well as, friends and family and charity. But what's really powerful about that is we already talked about with a traditional IRA, when that money comes out, someone's going to have to pay income tax on that. With a NDSU foundation, they don't have to pay that income. So again, another way to stretch and optimize those dollars. A lot of times as well, we don't think of life insurance as an asset, but definitely something to visit with your advisors about. Next, as part of an estate plan, you can do something called a bequest. And this would be in a will or in like a revocable living trust, where, a lot of times, like I have 3 children and, I want to provide some assets to them, but, I may not feel comfortable giving them everything that we have. I want them to strive and work and have that sense of purpose. And so what I may want to do is list a bequest, a certain dollar amount. It could be a dollar amount or a percentage of my estate. You can also do that in a revocable living trust. So while like with a life insurance policy or a retirement account, it's a beneficiary designation. You can change them at any time, so you don't have to feel like you're locked in, and you can do that on your own. However, with drafting of wills and trusts, I really do recommend having a conversation with a law firm. They're going to be able to look at your situation, help you articulate those goals, and lay out a plan so that your wishes are known. So I'm going to call those the give later strategies. The third category is a combination, and Virginia also mentioned charitable trusts. And these do get complex. They can be a little bit more expensive to set up, and you definitely want to have the advice and help of your attorney and your tax professional, as well as development officer. So I'm going to give you an example of how a charitable trust works. And there are two types. Today, I'm just going to talk about a charitable lead trust. And the reason I'm going to highlight that is we all know interest rates are historically low. So this is an extra powerful strategy today, if you will. So how a charitable lead trust will work is, think of a circle and draw a line in half. And on a lead trust, you or family and friends could get the income or a stated percentage of that trust value over a term of years or your life expectancy. And then that principal would go to a nonprofit organization at the end of that term or at your passing. There's something called a charitable remainder trust. That is just the opposite. But you can see why I call that both a give now and a give later strategy, because there's an income interest and there's that principal interest. And again, complex strategies recommended for larger gifts. You definitely will want to talk to Becky and Curtis about how these work and illustrations that they can do. So to summarize, we talked about the give now, being able to use appreciated securities, to use a retirement account as a qualified charitable rollover. We talked about some of those added kickers or the icing on the cake that I talked about, the North Dakota tax credit, as well as the $600. That's new legislation, newly enacted in 2021. And then we talked about the give later strategies, about beneficiary designations on assets such as life insurance and retirement accounts. And then we also talked about bequests in an estate plan, like your revocable living trust or your wills. And then at the very end, we talked about the combination strategies that really entail both give now and give later. But as you can see, these are all there's really a breadth of strategies that you can use. So think of me, going to breakfast with my mom and using that coupon at Hardee's to save some money. This is a way to help stretch your charitable dollars and make the most of them. So with that, thank you, Becky.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Those are great. I love the different stages that you put it into. I absolutely love that so much. Can you tell us what you would like our listeners to take away with today? What's the most important thing?
The most important thing is to engage in a conversation and to have a financial/estate plan. I have seen statistics where anywhere between 55 and 60% of Americans do not have an estate plan. And you know what? That's fine. The state that you live in does have a plan for you. However, that may not be where you want your assets to go. So I really encourage you to visit with your team of professional advisors, discuss an estate plan, think through how you want your assets to be used. And so, for example, you might be giving today, but what happens when you're not here? In addition to that, as part of having an estate plan, we often think of right away just a will or a revocable living trust. But I also want to just share a little bit about healthcare directives and durable powers of attorney. So often we assume as parents of our children, I have two that are over 18 now, I can no longer call on their health insurance or a medical provider. So if they were in an accident or needed some help financially, financial firms, healthcare, clinics and hospitals, I have no right to that information. Husbands and wives, sometimes you assume that you can operate for each other, but if it's a sole-owned account, the financial institution won't be able to share anything with you. So, thinking about retirement accounts as an example. So reach out to your team of professionals, discuss an estate plan. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect today. You can always change it. But I just think it's so important to have that backup plan and to convey your wishes for yourself personally and your health, as well as your finances.
Stacey, thank you so much for sharing all your valuable information today. I really want to emphasize the importance of documenting your charitable wishes in your estate plan, but also the most valuable thing is making sure you share that with your favorite charity.
Yes, absolutely. And the one thing I did neglect to mention, Becky, is if you are naming like an NDSU Foundation as one of your beneficiaries, reach out to your development director. There's very specific language you will want to use. And the same thing for other nonprofit organizations as well. So again, it really gets back to leverage that team of professionals around you and ask good questions, because they really do want what's best for you.
Thank you, Stacey. And I want to emphasize with the viewers, if you don't have a development director and you would like to make a donation to us, please contact us and we can assign you to a development officer that's in the college that you graduated from and will be the expert and know all the tips and tricks from your college. So please reach out if you're in need of a development director. So our next guest is Brandy Niemeyer. She is a PhD graduate from NDSU in the Human Development Program. Right now, she is an associate professor. She teaches and is department head at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. She lives there with her husband, Trent, and they have 2 children. Thank you, Brandy, for joining us. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to attend this event, and wow, what a wealth of information. I've learned a lot.
Great. If you wouldn't mind, can we dive into your experience here at NDSU? I know that you had some experience with philanthropy at NDSU while you were in graduate school. Can you tell me how that impacted you?
Absolutely. When I first started my PhD program at NDSU, I think I was just a few weeks into the program. And I learned of this great opportunity. It was a conference that was going to be held by the American Public Health Association. And when I heard of the conference, I was super excited because, I was new and fresh into graduate school. And when I started the PhD program, I was excited to be there. But more than that, I really knew that I had to plug in and learn as much as I could and network as much as I could and really grow and develop as a professional. My ambition was to be a professor in public health. I wasn't sure where, but most of all, I just really knew that while I was at NDSU, I had to set myself up for that career. And so, but I was a graduate student and I was broke, and I really I thought that the conference would be a really good opportunity for me. So I talked with my advisor at the time, and I asked if there was any way there would be funding to support me attending the conference. And by coincidence, he said, "Well, why don't you go ask our dean, Virginia Clark Johnson?" And so I did. And we talked for a bit, and she said that she would provide the funding out of her discretionary funds to pay for me to go to the conference, the travel expenses and the conference expenses. And wow, I was in awe of just the support. I felt the financial support, and it was really powerful, because otherwise I would not have gone. But I also felt embraced by NDSU and my college. And it was like, I really recognized that this university believes in me. And there are people that are ready to invest in me and in my future. And I had never experienced that before. and it was very powerful. And so, so I did attend the conference, and I learned so much at the conference, and actually became part of the steering committee for future conferences for the American Public Health Association, and then leaped right into doing presentations at the conference. And all I needed was a little support, and I was really able to use that support as sort of a launching pad, and it really helped pave the way for my career. I don't think I would have gotten such a good start without that support. And then later I learned that it is donations from people that help supplement that discretionary fund for the dean. And so it was just really a really powerful time. And then I guess it was a year or two later in my PhD program, I was, studying and learning, and I was married. My husband's name is Trent. He and I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, our oldest son. His name is Gage. Gage was, well, I guess I'm the mom, right? And so I'm biased, but he was just the most beautiful baby you would ever meet. He had the biggest personality, and he had flaming red hair, a full head of bright red hair. He was really the joy of our lives, but Gage was very, very sick. He was born with several congenital problems, and we sort of found ourselves being thrown into really a fight for Gage's life. We became regulars at children's hospitals in Minnesota and in Massachusetts and Boston. We were in the NICU for many, many, many weeks. We really were we were struggling. We were having a hard time. It probably goes without saying that financially we were struggling. And academically, I was trying to stay on top of things. At that point, I had just started my dissertation. And then we heard about the EML scholarship started by Evelyn Morrow-Lebedev, and I applied for it and really didn't expect to get it necessarily, but I wanted to apply for the support. And I did receive the EML scholarship, and we were floored. It was exactly what we needed at the exact time we needed it. It helped us financially, but more than that, I was so discouraged academically because we really didn't have the means for me to go and do presentations at conferences and publish research articles to really help set that foundation for my career. The EML scholarship, it made it so that all of those things could happen. And so it was like suddenly I felt like I will finish my dissertation. I will continue the work I'm doing at NDSU. I will continue all of the experiences I'm getting now so that I can prepare for my first job out of after graduation. And so so the EML scholarship really was huge. And at the same time, we were experiencing a lot of support from NDSU in general. The faculty and staff there who knew us and knew me, they were really impactful, and just I had great relationships with the staff and faculty, and it all really meant a lot. So all of that is to say, I guess, that once I did graduate from NDSU, right away I knew that I was going to give back to that discretionary fund. I really saw the value in the support that it provided for me. And I don't know, I wanted to give back, and I sort of wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to help the college invest in future professionals, because that's exactly what had happened with me. And I knew too, when I first graduated and I was starting my career, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money to give, but I knew that I could give something, and I wanted to give it to that discretionary fund. And so I did for a few years.
So I know we don't have a ton of time left, so I really want to dive into a couple questions here. So why, I know you set up a scholarship in memory of your son Gage, and I wanted to really ask you why, what inspired, I know you said the importance of the support you got on campus, but what is inspiring you and your husband to continue to support that?
Well, you know, I guess it all starts with our son Gage. He was a very sick baby, but he had such a great personality, and he was always smiling. Although he was so sick, and we knew that he felt, he felt sick and he felt pain. He always managed to muster up a smile and to be friendly and have such a big personality. That went right along with his flaming red hair. It's like it just matched him. So, what better way to celebrate Gage's life than to name a scholarship after him? He really was such a special little person, and he really helped change our lives. So Gage passed away just prior to his first birthday. And we reflected, my husband and I reflected on all that we had learned from Gage and from our experience with Gage at NDSU and in the Fargo area. And one thing that we learned is parenting is hard. It's a really hard job, but we also learned how important it was. And we knew that people came alongside us and helped us in all that we were going through. And the feeling of support and the feeling of empowerment was really, it was life-changing for us. And so when we were feeling that support, and we would, even like with the EML scholarship, we would stand in awe of the generosity of people and how meaningful it was to us. We said to each other, when we're able, we are doing this. We are going to help people that need someone to invest in their future for them. And we really decided that we wanted to help future parents who were trying to finish school. We wanted to support them in their efforts and what they were doing. So since then, we have two other boys. We have a house full of boys. Clark and Elliot are our other two sons. And they know so much about Gage. They know everything about their big brother. But we also really want to talk with them and model for them giving and generosity. And so they actually brought our son Clark to the meeting that we had with Ty to talk about setting up the scholarship. And not only was Clark really happy to talk about his brother, his big brother, but he was part of that experience, and that's what we wanted. Trent and I we want for them to see us being generous, and we hope that they can learn to be generous people as well.
I still can't get over that blazing red hair. It just takes my breath away.
Yeah.
What can you really quick just let me know what you want the legacy to have of your scholarship on campus?
It's interesting because when we were talking with Ty about setting up a scholarship, he asked about what legacy we wanted to leave, and we don't really want to have a legacy. What we want to do is continue the legacy that we felt supported by NDSU and Fargo and the Fargo area. It's full of a generous culture, generous people, and we don't want that to go away. We want for people in the future to feel the same amount of support as we did, because we know how impactful it was for our lives, for our careers, but also just for us as people, as we were learning and growing and maturing. We certainly want for Gage to be remembered. And so we love it that we were able to put Gage's name on the scholarship. But all in all, we just want to continue that legacy of generosity. we have the goal of endowing the scholarship one day. But you know, we aren't huge donors, and there's no pressure to do that. We do what we can do, and then when we become ready to endow the scholarship or increase it, we'll just call on Ty, and he'll be there, and he'll be ready to support us in doing that. One thing we've learned is, you know, we know we're not huge donors, but every contribution really does make an impact, no matter the size. It really goes to a very deserving student, or a program that supports students, and that's really what we appreciate so much about NDSU and the foundation.
Brandy, you're absolutely right that every single dollar makes a difference, and it doesn't matter if it's coming, how it comes, as long as it comes and we're able to turn it around and help support our students on campus. It's a dollar, like the small gift has a powerful impact. So I want to thank you again for everything you've shared with us today, and for joining us. And those photos are, oh, I just can't get over how wonderful they are. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you.
Perfect. I also want to thank Virginia and Stacy Virginia and Stacy for sharing their knowledge and experience with NDSU. It's been powerful to have them on the Women in Philanthropy today. And I also want to let everybody know, if you're interested in connecting and talking to us about making a donation or supporting NDSU, please feel free to reach out to the email that's on your screen, or you can call me at 701-231-6835. I do look forward to connecting with all of you and really diving into your experiences on campus and how you can pursue your passions of helping our campus on NDSU, our students. As Brandy said, every dollar makes an impact. So please feel free to reach out. I'd also like to close out the program with a performance by the Yellow and Green by the Bison Art Singers. They're led by Dr. Mike Weber. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Oh, cheer for